my friends, and welcome to another episode of Manufacturing Transformed. I'm your host, Paul Van Meter, and I had the pleasure today of talking to Andy Reinwald of Ripley Machine up in upstate New York. Andy is a really, really brave and inspiring guy. When he was just 21 years old, he took over leadership and ownership of the machine shop that his grandfather bought in many years before, which was originally started back in the 50s. And at the ripe old age of 21, Andy says he made many bad mistakes. One of them might have been buying a machine shop, but I'm sure that is in jest because what he has done with that business over the last many years, about 10 years running it, is truly inspiring. He's grown the revenue considerably. He's implemented ISO 9001. He's embraced lean principles, got his team fully on board, and they've truly, genuinely transformed their shop also with ProShop as well. So Andy went from having everything in his head, taking almost, he said, less than 10 days off in a 2-year period to a couple years ago, he took an entire 2-week vacation, almost completely unplugged, and credits a lot of that to his use of ProShop and the team's use of ProShop. So it is absolutely fantastic to support a guy as inspiring as Andy at still a very young age, absolutely kicking butt, showing what this new generation of millennial shop owners can do. So it's a fun story. He's a good storyteller, and I know you'll enjoy this episode, so let's go dig into it. Andy, welcome to Manufacturing Transformed. It's good to have you here.
Hey, Paul. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited for this.
Me too. So you and I have known each other for a number of years now. I've seen each other in various events. Of course, lots of interaction on LinkedIn. I love the story of you buying the shop from your grandfather and just what you've done with the business since. It's really inspiring. So yeah, let's start with your background and that of the shop and how that's sort of dovetailed when you bought it, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, so the company Ripley Machine had been in place. It wasn't known as Ripley Machine since the 50s. My grandfather bought it in 1994, and that's when it became Ripley Machine into a company, more so known as Ripley Machine in this day and age. And my grandfather grew it to a point, things went pretty well till the 2008, 2009 recession. And seeing kind of the life of the business flash before his eyes at the age of 70, he was like, okay, I need to have a plan here. In the meantime, I was still in high school. I graduated high school in 2011. So I started working there. I knew that Grandpa, if things worked out correctly, I knew that my grandfather wanted me to take the company over if possible. 2010, in between my junior and senior year, I started working at the shop. Really weren't a lot of just labor jobs available at that time. So I was really just looking for some kind of summer job. And I worked at the shop, running one part. I'd put a part in, wait 5 minutes and 40 seconds and change parts and hope I didn't hear any loud noises. And once in a while, make an offset change. After the first few weeks, I was allowed to make an offset change here and there. But really, I didn't do much besides that. And for a 17-year-old kid, man, that just kind of stunk. But after I graduated high school, I came back and started to get more involved in the business. Started to work on parts where setting up some basic drill presses or mills, and then started setting up some CNC lathes and really started to understand manufacturing, the business, have the opportunity to apply math and just be able to make parts from scratch and really come to love manufacturing. In 2015, January 2015, I was still 21 years old, and I decided to buy the company from my grandfather.
Wow.
I always say at 21, I made a lot of bad decisions, and buying a business might have been one of the worst. From that time, we really experienced in 2016 was the worst year in company history. Tested the company. I mean, it was a bad situation. Grace of God is the only reason that we made it through that year. And since then, we've been pretty much growing every single year pretty significantly. The last few years, we plateaued a little bit, but we're anticipating some large growth this year and could plan to continue that going forward.
Wow. What a story. So you were 21 years old when you decided to buy it. Now, were your parents involved at all or just straight from your grandfather to you?
Yeah, it was just straight from my grandfather to me. My mom's a nurse. That would be my grandfather's daughter.
Okay.
So they're, my
Good.
dad's been a contractor, and he's very involved with the business because I think I've got him working on something. It's pretty much, he's there twice a week probably, and
Mhm.
running errands for me once in a while. It's really helpful to have. I have a great family. Both my sisters have worked for the business, so it's cool to be
Very
truly a family business.
Yeah, yeah, very cool. So tell us a little bit about what the shop specializes in terms of equipment and types of parts you make and volumes and that sort of thing.
So we specialize in production, CNC turning, CNC milling, as well as centerless grinding, internal grinding. We've got Swiss machines, and we go up to 12-inch chuck on our lathes. We've got some 40 by 20 mills, and then a 12-inch horizontal, as well as multiple centerless grinders and internal grinders. And we also have CNC internal OD center grinder.
Okay, that's a good diversification of equipment. And industries you serve, I know you're ISO certified, right?
Yep, we're ISO certified. We serve really wherever we can. We're not AS 9100 yet,
Okay.
but we serve the valve industry, a lot of oil and gas, transportation, trucking industry. We do some medical equipment, do a few different things that works with fixtures and
Mhm.
whatnot for medical. There's probably a bunch more than I'm forgetting, but trying to become more diversified.
Yeah, that sounds pretty diverse already. How many employees do you have? Machines, just for approximate size of your shop?
We have 17 employees. I think we have 22 CNC machines, and
Nice.
then our grinding equipment.
Okay, it's a good size shop. So, I'd love for you to paint the picture before you decided that you needed something better on the sort of data information, shop management, software side of things. What was going on in the shop? What was challenging?
What wasn't?
What wasn't?
Yeah, so we were prior to ProShop, we had I don't know if it'd be called an ERP, but it was very antiquated. It was set up for, like, I would say, distributors. I think it came from a tooling distributor type place, and it was all key based, very like 1990s ish.
Mm.
I could manage to run like reports out of it, open order reports. It had parts on file, and I could make notes inside of those parts, but those would all print out on. So we'd have, if I had really extensive notes for a part on a work order, we might have a 15-page work order.
Oh wow.
So all of our, and then from there, we had just a lot of Excel spreadsheets, and then a lot of it was just up here.
Yeah,
Trying to keep open orders was a nightmare. Pretty much just kept them in my head and hoped I didn't mess anything up.
that's a lot to hold in your head at once. A lot
Yeah.
to lose sleep over,
Thankfully, I'm kind
probably.
of a numbers guy. So
Okay.
it worked out, but obviously, if I wasn't involved, nobody knew what was due, when it was due, any of that.
Yeah, how did it feel to be like the only person that knew all those things?
It definitely was very stressful. I mean, I knew it was not a way to continue doing business.
Hmm. Yeah. Can you? I meant to ask about 2016. What was? Is it just the economy? What was so hard about 2016? And what did you?
Um, After the 08, 09 recession, we had a little bit of a bump in 2010, 2011. But really, since 2011, our sales were trending downward. We were doing a lot of things wrong. There was customer service really was not the greatest. We weren't investing in equipment. There was no new equipment, no new capabilities. There was no marketing to speak of. Obviously, there's economic things that drove that in 2016. But we were on a downward trend towards that bottom out.
Wow. I can see why you sort of joke, hopefully joke that you made a lot of bad decisions at 21 and buying a shop might have been on that list.
Yeah, I'm 31, and you can see the gray hair.
Wow.
Everyone's like, "Hey, you got gray hair at 31." It's like, yeah, own a machine shop. You'll see.
Yeah, yeah. As I always say, the hardest business in the world, and you took it on at 21. That is
Yeah.
remarkable. So, all right. So you had these potentially 15-page paper travelers. You had every single thing in your head. You probably never took vacations, did you?
Yeah, it wasn't too commonplace. I remember in 2017,
Mm-hmm.
we went up, one of my key guys and we went up to an open house a couple hours in Buffalo, a couple hours away. And I remember on that trip, the next weekend I was going away on a little golf getaway, taking 4 days off. And I was like, well, when I'm off on Monday, that'll put me into double digit days off in my entire 5 years of working there at the shop. So, or 6 years of working there at that point in time. So yeah, that's how little I took time off. Some of that was just my personality. Some of that was just because it was too difficult to take time off.
Wow. Okay. So then you started doing some research about software. How and why did you eventually decide on ProShop?
So I knew we weren't doing things right. I mean, from the get go, I knew there was a lot of things I wanted to fix inside the business. And it was just a matter of trying to take the lowest hanging fruit all the way through until 2018. We got ISO certified in 2016. And while we are doing that, shortly after we got ISO certified in 2016, we had to change over to the 2015 standard. And I pretty much did that on my own research, figure out what I needed to do to get us from the 2008 to the 2015. And while I was doing that, I really started to embrace a lot of, I would say, good business habits, looking at what trends other people were doing, establishing processes, just taking good steps towards becoming a better business. And one of the things I recognized was that our software was just so outdated and it was so burdensome. We were running into issues with, most of our late orders were caused by just various different issues that could have been prevented. Like I said, you're trying to add these notes to work orders, and it's like you're trying to add notes about what tools you need, how to check parts, anything else that's going to cause a delay. And it was all typing based, and it was all like a typewriter. So if you went too many,
Right.
you had to think ahead of like hit enter before you're going to have a half a word type of thing. So I knew what we were doing was not good. I went to IMTS in 2018, and one of our three main objectives that year was to look at ERPs. We explored the ERPs that were represented, or at least that we saw at the 2018 IMTS. We didn't see ProShop. Every single ERP that I talked to, I said, okay, what are you doing with like gauges? And they said, well, not really anything. You can have an Excel spreadsheet and it can tie to the ERP this way or blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, well, that's really not much better than what I'm doing at this point in time. Somehow through, I'm not really certain exactly how, but I ended up hearing about ProShop, set up a meeting with you, if I'm not mistaken, back in 2018, 2019, got the pricing. And at that point in time, it was just, I couldn't do it. So I knew I wanted to. I was amazed. Once I saw your guys' system, I'm like, oh my gosh, this would be a game changer for our business. We were struggling and probably didn't prioritize what we spent money on the best we should have. So fast forward to 2020, COVID comes around. I'm trying to do things and figure out how to try to navigate the whole world of COVID. But we also, in my mind, I was looking at everybody staying at home. And I thought, how long until this bubble of lack of consumption catches up to us here in manufacturing? So I wanted to be prepared to what I was going to do when we didn't have orders. Obviously, with PPP funding, we were able to get one round of that. And I was prepared. Like, okay, I'm supposed to keep my team working. What are we going to do? How are we going to do it? And I said, I know exactly what we're going to do. We're going to do this ProShop. So as soon as the first sign of a slowdown we saw in May of 2020, we pulled the trigger on ProShop.
Wow. Well, I'm sorry you didn't find us in 2018 at IMTS. We had a tiny booth way back in the back of the bottom floor of the East Hall, but I'm glad you eventually did find us. But wow, yeah, I mean, just the struggles of cash flow and like limited resources. I know what that's like. And yeah,
It's still a struggle.
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So then you onboarded. So did you have other folks in the office that like were doing some training from home? Obviously, your shop guys still had to come in. I presume you were labeled an essential business, so you just kept the guys coming in and did whatever you had to do to kind of comply with whatever New York had for regulations. But yeah, did you have folks that were also kind of that you had office folks that you had to send home?
Oh, actually, my sister, she played semi-pro basketball or pro basketball overseas. And when she was back home, she would work for me. And it was really nice when I had her back home. But she had just left. She left March 6th to go play basketball in Australia. So when she the next week or next week or two, she ended up coming back home. So she was working in the office, but it was nice because, being family, we really didn't worry about having we still kind of tried to keep our distance just that way we didn't have, but most of the time we were around each other outside of work anyways. So,
Yeah.
I just had one other office person at that point in time. And, we really didn't worry too much about social distancing.
You were kind of in each other's bubbles. You were in the same bubble. So got it. So you obviously replaced your old, very antiquated sounding DOS based system. How many other little spreadsheets and databases and other things did you also replace, do you think?
Well, we probably replaced, I don't know, dozens of a couple or maybe a couple dozen spreadsheets or systems type of things.
Mm-hmm. Did that include, like you mentioned, asking ERP vendors about gauge calibration or gauge management? I presume you had systems for that kind of stuff because you were ISO certified, so you had to.
We had a gauge Excel spreadsheet. We had some macros and stuff written inside of it. So but we still had to go in there and actually check for what gauges were coming due, and it was nothing compared to what we have now.
Mm-hmm. I can relate to your comments about talking to those ERP vendors and asking them about solutions that you actually needed, just like practical solutions to things, and having them say, no, we don't really do that. Because that's the exact same thing that we did at ProCNC in like 2000 when we were looking for software, and we had all these spreadsheets just like you, and we went to the vendors and we said, all right, show us how you do gauge management, show us how you do inspections, show us how you do work instructions. And they were like, no, we don't do those things. Like, what did you think as you got all these answers from these companies? Like, these guys are just out of touch with what a shop does, or like what was going through your mind?
Yeah, I mean, when I looked at their softwares, I thought, they would be beneficial to us compared to where we were at, but it was like putting a Band-Aid on a bullet hole that it really didn't even, it was like, what's the point of doing this? And I also knew some of those options were a lot cheaper. And we kind of considered potentially doing that as, like I said, a Band-Aid on a bullet hole type of thing, but I just knew it wasn't right for us. I saw ProShop before I even came close to making a decision, and I knew I wanted ProShop. It was a matter of when, not if.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. So once you got going, do you remember a first feature or module or something that you're like, oh wow, like this is just going to be such a helpful thing for our shop?
That's a really difficult question to answer because, as I think back, there's so many things we started using right away. But for whatever reason, the thing that pops into my head is the tooling module.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't embrace the ProShop way when it came to tooling for the first 2 to 3 years that we were a ProShop customer. But just having individual tool pages for each tool, being able to give all of our tools a tool number and get that data in there, and it just have some organization there. Tooling was not something I had a spreadsheet for. I had tried at various times to make some spreadsheets or simplify that process of ordering tooling. And at the end of the day, I just reverted to the old, like, it's in my head who we order what from. So it really, when a tool came in, it's like, okay, who did we get that from? Think back through. So once I was able to start going through tools and adding them to ProShop and having that available at my fingertips, and then it was something that I could really show to my team and give them some insights to what I was thinking and why I was putting us on this path.
Got it. Yeah, that you must have a good head for numbers because there's obviously hundreds, if not thousands, of tools probably you have in your shop, and that's a lot of vendors and numbers and cut lengths and insert radii and a lot of information to know. What was the impact of having that more organized? Did you spend less on tooling? Did you have the right tools at the right time for doing setups? What was the practical implications?
Yeah, I mean, thinking back to like 2020 as we implemented, it definitely made my life a lot easier when it came to ordering inserts and tools. And then as we transitioned the next 2 or 3 years and really started to embrace what I'm calling the ProShop way, when it comes to tooling, we saw reduced tooling spend and shipping spend in 2022 and 2023, if I'm not mistaken, if I remember right, despite double digit growth in our shop. And obviously at that point in time, inflation, I think we were probably 2 or 3 price increases from most tooling vendors and from UPS during that period. So to be able to see those numbers go down while probably for most everybody else, they were going up pretty significantly. That was a huge benefit. And then as we embraced the tooling, having the tooling library, the tool crib, so to speak, with the toolboxes, and started to get those tools inside of sequence details on the part level, we saw a big reduction in setup time and just wasted time. And we also saw a lot of times where it's like, we'd have an insert and there would be 5 at this machine, 5 at this machine, 5 at this machine, 4 tucked behind this person's cabinet, as an emergency, 3 in this drawer, and you had inserts all over that. It's like, okay, cool. We have 25 of this insert when we're buying 10 a year. And it's like, I replace the pack for one person each year when we don't need to be buying these inserts.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so common. So you basically you could kind of surf off of that inventory that you realized that you had and aggregate it into one spot for quite a long time.
Yeah. And the other thing is too, like with that inventory is, I bet you over the years, there were several times where I might have overnighted some inserts because, so-and-so needed them for a job. And meanwhile, we had 3 more half used boxes sitting around the shop. It's just nobody else knew we had them.
Oh yeah, that's you're speaking the truth. That is I mean, it's a funny but not funny situation that is so common. Expediting and buying more of something you already have, you just don't realize it. So as you started using ProShop for managing orders, contract review, sort of the things you have to do up in the office. What impact did that have? Did it help reduce lead times? Did it help reduce mistakes? Anything there?
Yeah, I mean, it was a significant impact. The lead times definitely went down. It was a lot easier to plan a job. Again, that was planning, machine scheduling. It was all done pretty much in my head. So believe it or not, would make a mistake once in a while with that, and you'd be out on a job way longer than anticipated. When it comes to lead times and late orders, even orders where we still might have been late, it gave us clarity of that a lot sooner. Sometimes we would have late orders that it's like we didn't really even know about it ourselves until a week or two in advance. And that might even be a lot. We might be thinking, I would a lot of times have to sit there and math out every single operation. Like, okay, when are we going to get these done? And to keep doing that on hundreds of jobs a week just wasn't really something I cared to do or did. So having better understanding when it came to lead times, just making our processes more standardized every step of the way, allowing that somebody can somewhat jump right in and be able to pick up where I left off or where somebody else might have left off, and just streamlining that. So I could probably go on for hours upon hours on on all the benefits when it comes to that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great. And tell us about your team on the shop floor, your machinists. How did they respond to the system and getting rid of travelers? You mentioned using like tool organization as a way to kind of get them on board. Can you add a little more color to that?
Yeah, I think we really had a pretty good results, good buy-in on it. I mean, our biggest struggle was probably just getting people to use computers that are not familiar with using computers all the time. We have a couple of guys that either didn't have cell phones or were like T9 texting, a couple like texts here and there was the extent of, so very behind the times when it came to technology. So we still have a learning curve we run into when it comes to technology on the floor. But for the most part, everyone bought in. They saw the benefit of it, big picture. Some of that I like to think is trust that, since I've owned the company, I'd like to believe that everything we're doing is looking at the big picture, so we're sustained for years to come.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing everything that you share and post about your lean initiatives, your Kaizen process, just it's so obvious that you're just, you personally and, looks like your whole team is just really invested in just constantly improving, 2 seconds at a time or however you want to think about it. So I got to believe that this just really dovetails nicely into that. And if that's the culture that your team has really bought into and embraced, then yeah, I could see why it would be an easy transition compared to companies that don't really have that as a mindset and a culture.
Yeah, and we have some key people that really buy in, and that really helps. That it's not just me that's driving this ball forward. It's several people. That it's kind of like a FOMO type of thing. That it's if you're not going to buy in, you're gonna miss out on what we're all doing here. And I mean, you can keep trying to be in your own little bubble, but we're just going to keep this thing going forward and keep like you said, we're really big into lean and 6S and the 8 wastes and doing a lot of that kind of stuff it's kind of having the leadership on the shop floor, the team members that are dedicated to that. It really helps the cause.
Yeah. So I want to pause there for a second because not every shop has nearly as successful as you've been in getting that buy-in on sort of lean principles, the 8 wastes and all that. How did you do that? How did you get, really that momentum and those team members engaged and excited and actually pushing with you?
I don't know exactly how some of the key leader team members that have been really buying in got involved. I think I like to share out podcasts and videos and that kind of stuff in hopes that people will pick up on what I'm learning, but also maybe see things that I don't see as a second set of eyes on things and how we can apply them here. But I know Paul Akers talks in 2 Second Lean. I believe it's Paul Akers talks about being on a tour in Japan to learn about lean. And he talks about how there are all these executives and they're sitting there scrubbing the floor of their restroom. So leading by example is one thing I always try to do. I'm not saying I'm perfect at it, but nothing should be below my standards of doing something. If the bathroom needs cleaned, I'm willing to do it. If it's cleaning a coolant tank, I'm willing to do it, and just keep trying to embrace that when people see you out on the shop floor taking 15-20 minutes to sweep up around a saw or look at projects and that would be a 2 second improvement or maybe a 20-minute improvement or whatever it might be. But also just doing it transparently, trying to be as open as possible, that it's not selfish driven. It's, we're trying to build this company with values and standards that are going to last a lifetime or hopefully multiple lifetimes. And we're not trying to do it to as some get rich quick type of thing. It's to benefit our team members, make their lives easier, remove that friction that exists when things don't go as planned. And I think our team has seen that and really bought in.
That's fantastic. Yeah, good for you. I mean, anyone listening should follow you, set the little bell so they can see when you post, because I think the way you're doing it is just really admirable. So good for you on that side of it.
Thank you.
You mentioned that early in the early years you're doing a lot of things wrong. You didn't have marketing and sales focus. You didn't have lots of things, old equipment. As I mentioned, I've clearly seen sort of the step up in marketing that you've done. You're always showing your lean improvements. You always talk about coming to our webinars and learning and other learning from anywhere and anyone. The podcasts. Thank you so much for sharing when you're in the truck listening to podcasts when you're going somewhere. So I know your customers are seeing this as well and knowing how much you're investing in the business. Have you showed ProShop to your customers, or you now, of course, been ISO audited at least a couple of times since converting it all into ProShop? What's that feedback been like?
Yeah, I mean, anybody that we've had the opportunity to show ProShop and how we've implemented it internally at Ripley Machine, they've just been blown away. We would like to get more of our customers in and see our operations on a day-to-day basis. Because of that, we feel like it's a great sales tool, having them see what we're doing. I had a guy or a customer of mine. Unfortunately, he has since left that company, but he was the supplier quality engineer. He had been to our shop a handful of times dating back to 2018, 2019. And I had him in, I think last summer at some point in time, and I was very intentional about showing him what we're doing and wanting to establish that, hey, we are a vendor that is focused on growth. We are focused on doing the right things. So that way we are here to serve you 30 years from now. And he was immediately giving us a lot of compliments on our system and what we were doing. But what really stood out to me is a few months later, we had a gauge of theirs that was at our facility. It was coming due for calibration. We told them that their gauge was coming due for calibration. And at that point in time, he said something to the effect of like, I've seen your systems, like you keep your gauges in way better shape, keep way better track of your gauges than we ever could. Go ahead and keep using that gauge. Like, I'm not worried about the calibration on it until we get done with this order. Whatever. I forget, that might be paraphrasing, but he was just like so like honest about that to say that like our systems were way better than theirs. So that stood out to me. We've actually only had one in-person ISO audit since we joined ProShop. Unfortunately, our auditor, when we were doing virtual, didn't really embrace the whole technology thing. It was a lot of like, he would call my cell phone and or call the shop line. I'm like, well, at least call my cell phone so I can talk to you on AirPods to make my life a little bit easier. But I'm like, can we just do it? I think the third or fourth year of doing a virtual audit, I managed to convince him to do a Teams audit so I could like pull up my screen and show him. And once he started to see that, he was like, oh my gosh, like it's even in our ISO, like the wrap up, whatever you call that, at the end of the audit, the report that he submits to his company and to us. He speaks very highly of our ERP and our culture that's embraced that ERP.
That's fantastic. You said you'd like to have more clients come visit. Do you go out and visit your customers as well on any kind of regular basis and bring your laptop and show them the system?
I go out and visit our customers pretty frequently. One of the things that we preach at our company is just a dedication to customer service, which a lot of times means that, hopping in the truck and delivering parts or, when an LTL or a UPS isn't reliable enough. So we're trying to get in front of our customers pretty frequently. I don't usually bring my laptop, but I've quite frequently pulled out my phone and been like, having a conversation about an order and pulled out my phone and was like, oh yeah, here's this order, like, oh yeah, we shipped those to you a month ago, or, those are ready to ship next week or whatever it is that, just as an opportunity to somewhat display and show off what we're able to do.
That's cool. That's awesome. So many of our clients would say that ProShop is kind of just at this point the backbone of everything they do. Do you feel like that's a true statement at Ripley?
Oh, absolutely. We couldn't function a day without ProShop. It's what our machinists are dependent on. It's what, all especially our office staff, everything we do basically revolves around ProShop.
Mm-hmm. Do you have any sense of you've thrown out quite a number of numbers, or at least categories of costs that you were tracking, like tooling costs or shipping costs, setup times. Do you have any sense of an ROI of, I know it's, it is a more expensive system than some of the ones you considered, but hopefully that ROI is very positive in terms of helping you add more revenue without adding more people or getting more throughput on the shop floor or reducing that tooling spend. Have you ever kind of added it all up?
I've never added it up, but I will say that the reduction in tooling spend and shipping alone in 2022 and 2023 paid for the subscription itself that year. And I can't even begin to quantify things like being able to, the marketing side of things, the value to your customers, how, much presentable our company looks when it comes to forms that are being sent out and confirmations and team morale. So I can't quantify it because ProShop gives me the ability to track like setup times now, but I had no way of tracking that before. So I can't even begin to quantify it, but I know that it's not just paying for itself, it's paying for itself numerous times over on a yearly basis.
I love to hear that. So I'm curious. I don't normally ask this question, but you've been running the shop now for what, about 14 years? Is that right?
I've been running the shop for about 12 years or so, 13 years, give or take. And I've owned the shop for just over 10 now.
Okay. So maybe we can call you a veteran in the industry because you're, I'm sure, a fast learner and know a ton now. But I've had clients even on the show that have said that they thought they knew how to run a machine shop, but ProShop really showed them like almost a different kind of operating system and a different way of thinking about running their shop. Would you say that might be true? Any element of that is true in your case?
Oh, absolutely. I would go a step further. I mean, ProShop software definitely gave me guidelines to be able to run a business and know what I should be doing and utilizing those tools. But when you talk about like the webinars where we start to break down profit and loss on a job direct and just think about the webinar whenever just recently, where we're talking about job costing and indirect costs and all those things that quite honestly, I probably didn't even have a clue of prior to beginning to work with ProShop. And now they're things that I am looking at on a daily or a weekly basis. So those types of things are definitely just huge when it comes to running a business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So with all that in mind, how would you say ProShop has impacted you personally, just as a business owner in your personal life? How would you answer that?
It's definitely made my life a lot easier. There's still fires to be put out, but you're dealing with a lot. I don't want to say a lot bigger fires, but a lot more important fires. I don't know that I'm too often dealing with we don't have any more of this end mill or this drill insert or whatever it is. It's more so just quality of parts or how we're going to get these parts done on time. So that's on a day-to-day basis. It also allows that the work from home thing. Not that I do that. I'm a very much an extrovert. Love people. Love being at work. But when it comes time that it's necessary to work from home or work from the road, it makes my life a lot easier. And in theory, when I'm not there, things should be able to go on. What needs to be purchased for a job, it's spelled out inside of ProShop. What jobs need machine next. The scheduling, that's been a game changer for me because I was probably answering 15, 20 texts a day of what's next what's next? What's next? What do you want me to run next? And now, I can set a schedule. I would say our schedule for this week is set aside from a couple machines that are bottlenecks, our grinding department in specific of, you know, what what I thought on Saturday of last week is probably going to change a little bit as this week progresses and we try to get put out the biggest fires. But the machine scheduling, that's been huge. So it's just been so much that I can do either remotely, don't have to do. It just made my life a lot easier.
I know that, was it a couple years ago now, you planned and took like a week or two trip to Africa, I think. And I remember you talking about that and your nervousness of getting ready and going and leaving the shop kind of, without you, which I imagine would have been absolutely unheard of prior ProShop. But yeah, what was it like to be able to take that trip and know that the shop has the answers, or you could still be contacted in a emergency if you needed to, or just, yeah, what was that like for you to be able to do that?
Yeah, that trip, I mean, that trip was all around amazing. But when it comes from a work standpoint, being able to be gone for the better part of 2 weeks and in South Africa at the time we were there 2 years, it was just 2 years ago this week, they have what's called load shedding. And basically they don't have enough electric for their whole country. So they shut down their power grid multiple times a day to help conserve electricity. And with that shut down phone service when I did have phone service. So very often, or Wi-Fi, the majority of the trip, I did not have phone, did not have internet. So it was truly the first time, it was the first true vacation I ever took. And even when I took other trips before, I was always working and available by phone to answer questions, to give marching orders, to handle whatever else needed to be handled. But on that trip, I was pretty much completely unplugged. I think I did a FaceTime at one point in time to walk one of my guides through sending a quote on a job. And other than that, I pretty much just stayed uncontacted. And what was amazing to me is before I've taken trips and I've come back and there's a pile on my desk of it's a nightmare of catching up. I came back and I thought, well, I got home very late one night, and with the time change, 7 hours of time change, and I was traveling for the better part of about 40 hours coming home. So by the time I got home, I was running on a few hours of sleep, and my body clock thought that it was 7 hours in front. So I was wide awake at 2 in the morning. I finally came into work at 6 or so or 5, and I thought, well, I've got a lot I'm going to have to do. And I get there, and by lunchtime I was like, there's nothing else I really have to do today. It's stuff I could work on, but it's low priority. So it was truly an amazing trip. And just to be able to have that opportunity and not have to be super anxious the whole time about what was happening at the shop and not have to come back into a major mess to deal with. It's a testament to our team, and it's also a testament to ProShop and the systems we've been able to put in place with ProShop.
Oh, that just warms my heart. I'm so glad. You should be doing those trips every couple of years because you totally have earned it and deserve it.
I just booked it, or I'm working on booking a 2 week trip this year. So,
oh, good for you.
I just told our management team today, I said, hey, I was already planning on doing this trip to Ireland for a golf trip that I did 2 years ago, where I was pretty much working from Ireland the whole time when I wasn't golfing. But I was like, works out with my sister who's in the military. Like, we're kind of thinking about making this, on either end of the golf trip, expanding it out to 2 weeks. So pretty excited about that.
Very cool. Well, hopefully you can be equally unplugged.
So retest all of our unpluggedness.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Do you feel like the culture of your shop has changed over the last, 4 or 5 years as you've had ProShop in place? Is there more ownership? Is there more accountability? Or is that a part of the changes you're making with lean and everything else?
Yeah, I mean, I think ProShop plays a role in that. There's definitely been a huge culture shift. I think back to like when I first came into the shop and was working on the shop floor, and I picked up a lot of the bad habits that were happening in that era where things were just done just to get by, whatever that might look like. I mean, I think about some of the stuff we were doing back then, and I'm just like, Oh my goodness. Like it gives me anxiety to think back to that era. But the transformation really started when we went from 2008 to 2015 ISO, ISO 9000, 2008 to 2015. That's when we started to embrace the transformation and just doing things the right way, whatever that might look like. But ProShop has just been such a big part of that. I think it's demonstrated to our team that this is not something we're taking lightly. We are all in on building a company that's going to be serving our customers for years to come and doing things the right way. And ProShop is the right way when it comes to how we're handling our data.
I love it. So the name of this show is Manufacturing Transformed, and you just used that word transformed. I guess it's fair to say, I mean, you've been on a bigger transformation journey, much bigger than just ProShop, right? Since you bought the company, did ISO, did Lean, but can you just add a little more about how that transformation, assuming that you think is truly the right word for it over the last few years?
Yeah, I mean, transformation it's easy to get caught up in, and I've been in a lot of shops where like you could eat lunch off their floors. And they've got teams that are building robots and for unloading and loading parts. And, they're 3D printing little fixtures or for their parts catchers or for inspecting parts. And it's easy to go to those shops and come back and just feel a little dejected because it's like, oh my gosh, like we are so far behind at Ripley Machine compared to those companies. But then when you look, like, I think it probably happens on a weekly basis that I'll have a memory pop up of, some picture I might have taken on social media or something just in my phone and you see like, I might have taken a picture of a crate of parts and you see the background and it's just like, oh wow, like we have changed. There's that old paper work order laying on the floor there. It's probably laying on the floor when it shouldn't even be on the floor. But, you just see those things that it's just like, wow, like everybody that's come in our shop, I find it more enjoyable for people to come into our shop that have been there before and just see like, oh, wow, like this place has changed.
That is super cool. That's something to be seriously proud of because, like I'm sure you probably agree, it is such a hard business. There's a million details you got to get right. There's a million things to work on. It's all got to come together to deliver the perfect parts on time, no delays, within budget. And to be able to get that done, really well and continue to work on the systems of the business and the lean and getting rid of waste. That's what it's all about for building that long-term company the right way, as you just said. So good stuff. What would you say in the entirety of the time you've been involved, or some of the best wins and best strategic decisions you've made in the company?
I'd say some of the best wins is probably survival. Just surviving some of those tough years, and personally, that helped to establish my trust in God and my faith, and just knowing that that's always going to be part of our business. So that's a huge win. That's probably one of the, definitely I would say, is the most transformative, most biggest win for me and for our company. After that, I'd say it's definitely a toss up, and I'd probably have to give it to ProShop. Going to ProShop was probably one of our best strategic decisions. We can talk for days about how it's impacted our business. And the other thing that I would say is a toss up is getting into Swiss machining and just the investment in automation and everything we did with that opened our eyes to like using the right tools, embracing automation, high pressure coolant, and the impact that can have. So that was a huge, it doesn't seem like a lot, but it really was a transformation for us. It was a big step, big win, big positive decision.
So you didn't have Swiss machines when you first joined the company? You added those later?
Yeah, we added those. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, very smart. Very smart. Yeah, those are pretty incredible machines. I imagine it opened new doors for new customers and
Yeah. Well, and that's something else that like when you say like win, it is like it's not just the Swiss machine, and it was like opening our eyes on things because it's like that kind of established how we purchase machines. That like when we're buying a machine, we're going to look at something that's going to significantly help the throughput of what we're currently doing, but also adds capabilities and gives us a sales tool that we can use to
Mm,
customers in the future.
yeah. Yeah. All right. Last couple questions. If you could imagine, if you will, that you're sitting here today, but you never did ProShop. What would Ripley Machine look like today? Where would you be at, sort of revenue wise, as a percentage of where you're at? What would your stress level be like? What would it look like today?
Oh man, you're trying to give me an anxiety attack here. Yeah, I can't fathom, the growth that we've had the last few years and the growth that we expect. I can't fathom trying to manage that without ProShop. I have to imagine, our team is very, we've got a team that's been around for a long time. We do not have turnover, and I can't imagine some of our team members staying with us for the last 5 years if we weren't investing the way we are in ProShop and doing things the right way. I mean, I definitely would not have gone to South Africa 2 years ago. And I can't even begin to imagine what I would be doing if I didn't adopt ProShop or at least, something similar to it, at least halfway similar to it. So I don't even want to think about it.
Well, again, super grateful that you did. It's incredible to be able to support, a company like you, a person like you. The fact that you took on this business at such an incredibly young age and have done so much with it, so much improvement, sharing it publicly. You're definitely an inspiration to me, and I know for many others. So, if people want to reach out and find out more about Ripley, doing work with you, send you an RFQ, how do they reach out to you?
I mean, the first way, like you said, I'm very active on LinkedIn. I would encourage you, regardless, to connect with me on LinkedIn. I love having conversations, sharing what we're doing, seeing what other shops, other people are doing. I love manufacturing. I love this industry, so I love being able to really just have that network to connect with people. So find me on LinkedIn. You can visit our website, www.ripley hyphen, whatever you want to call it, machine.com. My email is Andy R at Ripley machine.com. So I would just encourage you to reach out, email me. Like I said, connect with me on LinkedIn.
All right. Well, Andy, thank you again for everything you pour into the industry. It's clear that you're such a passionate advocate for it, and congratulations on all the success at Ripley Machine and all the work you've done.
Thanks, Paul. And the feeling's mutual. I mean, it's so awesome to see everything you're doing as you're wearing your Thank a Machinist shirt for the industry.
Every
It's
day.
so awesome to see other like-minded people that just love this industry and are driving things forward. So very appreciative of you and ProShop. And thank you for having me on this show.
All right. Thank you, my friend. Take care.